Hello, my name is Dr. Michelle Thompson, and I'm with the University of New Orleans Department of Planning and Urban Studies. On May 10th, 2024, the Office of the Provost hosted Professor Carlos Moreno and Catherine Arod-Gall so they could talk about understanding proximity, 15-minute city in New Orleans. Hoffman Triangle is in the heart of Central City, but due to lack of resources, infrastructure, recovery from Hurricane Katrina, this amazing neighborhood has all the great bones and the ability to really come back. In the spring of 2024, the Advanced Geographic Information Systems, or GIS class, along with the UNO Masters in Urban and Regional Planning intern and our WhoData volunteers, did a 100% property condition survey of the over 900 parcels. We collected data on what parcels are overgrown, where there's abandonment, where there's new housing. The status of the neighborhood included looking at what amenities are still needed, a full-service grocery store, for example. The goal was to be able to launch the very first North American 15-minute city project with the support of Professor Carlos Moreno and Catherine Gall, who've already modeled different ways to collect information, assess the type of equipments or amenities that are needed, and work with the municipal government to help the neighborhoods participate in the process of renewal, engagement, and revitalization. What you're about to hear are the presentations from Catherine Arod-Gall, who will provide more details on the purpose and use and how that 15-minute city works in reality. And Professor Carlos Moreno will expound upon how that 15-minute city really helps us focus on a global scale and try to help us all remember we're part of the solution and not part of the problem.
Yeah. This is our team, and we get, Carlos and myself, we are very fortunate because we could be here with you today and this week, but there are resources behind. The team has changed a little bit. Michelle would know a lot of those faces because she's been visiting us several times, but we are a team, a great team of international researchers from design, from urban studies, from data science, from sociology as well, and also management, because we do belong to a management school, and maybe it comes as a surprise to you, although it's always something we mention, but we look at urban studies also from the way we can regenerate and think of new urban models, and not just the planning of operations, but actually how all of us will get to contribute, create, but also be nourished by cities. Right from the start, and Carlos here co-created this chair with two of the gentlemen that you saw in the picture, Dr. Panthéon and Dr. Chabot, and right from the start, they had this idea that while you would be based in Paris, because you have to belong somewhere to a doctoral school, to be a research lab, we really wanted to actually look at the world and look at the common issues that challenge cities, but also territories. We are not focused on large cities, we also look at less urbanized areas, because what we really aspire at doing is looking at the quality of life. So now I guess you get to get the story behind this little persona that you see over here, which is Proxy, and it's the result of the graphic design talent of our designer, because the work we do actually belongs to theoretical models and is really around conceptualizing what a city looks like and how it operates. But unless it touches people, nothing will happen. And that's not what we want. We don't want to publish books being on shelves. What we want is actually to offer new models, new frameworks, and they can be experienced and they can actually have an impact. Having an impact is really what is in the heart of what we do. Michelle was right. You heard the name 15-minute city. It also comes new book's title, so we're not going to not talk about that. But if there is one thing that you can take away from this evening, is that the 15-minute city is a code name for a bigger issue or a bigger concept, which is living in proximity, what Carlos also calls the happy proximity. And this is one definition out of many, because as most of you will guess, we have done literature review and we have looked at what other colleagues have researched before, and God knows quality of life is a very, very rich field. But this is one that we felt really applies to what we are trying to do, which is looking at how you can support people in close distance and in short distance to the things that they best and they most need in life to be happy and to be supported. And so this definition we felt is guiding the work we have started. If after this evening you meet a friend or your wife or your spouse or partner, it would be great if you could remember those 5 things which really are the pillars of what we mean when we talk about proximity. Proximity may be a simple word. I'm not too sure how it resonates in English for you guys, but there is a Latin root in this word. It means what's next to me, whether it's a human being, whether it's nature, whether it's tomorrow in time. And so when we talk about happy proximity in city, we basically cover those 5 points. And as you will see, we are not the guys who are measuring the time we spend. And just like you, we usually are a little late in everything we do, so we wouldn't be the right people to actually be very prescriptive about time. What's important are those 5 things. A proximity environment is one where you have different centers. The technical word is polycentric. In the audience, I'm sure we'll have colleagues who could explain to those who are less specialized about that. But the whole idea is to desaturate cities, creating nodes and connecting them into hubs, so people can really have the services and the amenities, what you guys call resources and not equipment. We understand that, and so that's the first thing. So as you can see, there's nothing like measuring the time, although we use time measurement as a technique to actually identify where those points should be. The second aspect is really that it's a territory or a place that has to be responding and responsive to people's needs. And they evolve, they change over time. And so we should have mechanisms that neighborhood by neighborhood, which is why with Michel we thought it would be good to label this discussion my city, my neighborhood. If I'm affiliated to a city, it starts with my neighborhood. It's where I live, it's where I have my friends, where I walk my dog, I have my children, I like to be outside on Sundays, and so that's changed over time for many different reasons. And so a city that lives with urban proximity needs to take that into consideration, and there are processes to do that. Carlos will take you through some of those processes, and it's true for small neighborhood, it can be true for big cities as well. Participatory budgets, participatory discussion are those that will fuel this idea of a happy city. Then the third point is that in a happy proximity city, you should be close to natural resources that you share with others. So having access to green spaces, air quality, the water that you can drink, the right amount of noise so that you can open your window and having some fresh air in your house. Those are essential elements that maybe we have lost a little bit in urban dense environment, but they are part of being close to nature and the environment. The fourth one is around transportation and mobility, and as you can see, it wasn't the first one. Not that it's not important, and it's to support this idea of proximity, but in a proximity environment, it's important to be able to have a reasonable, less carbonized mobility transportation to the essential amenities we need. So active mobility, the walking, the cycling, using public transportation are the main transportation modes we would consider a part of a proximity neighborhood. And then the fifth one is really important actually, is the fact that in such an environment, you want to be mixing social classes, you want to be mixing genders, you want to be mixing occupants of different neighborhoods, people who work in the evening, in the morning, during the weekends. So you have that vibrant and friendly community, and it's the opposite of what we call gentrification. So those are really important. Again, maybe it's a little complex, you won't memorize them all, but if you capture one of those, one or two, that would be great. Won't take you through that, but for the research colleagues in the room or the students, be aware that we run a seminar. It's a 3-year seminar. We'll start another cycle in September, where around the world, and we would welcome some of your contribution, we invite a researcher every month for a 2-hour discussion. It's an online event And we cover all kinds of dimensions of urban proximity. We looked at waste management in Vietnam. We looked at how you heat buildings and the notion of sharing a fire and being in proximity to actually your heating system, how you can also share those. So really, we have now 3 years of different contribution, and we are publishing the book about that. This is an important visual because it shows how from me as a person living in a neighborhood, feeling belonging to a community, I can change behaviors, I can adopt new ways of working and living. That can then be enlarged to the neighborhood and then to the city. And this is how, as Carlos will take us through the more theoretical model, we can have a bigger impact, because there's no question that the reason this concept is now being popular or at least investigated is for 2 reasons. One is the social injustice and the disparities of quality of life, but the other one is really around climate change and the fact that if we go on with the life we have, we just are not going to have quality of life for all of us. So that's why the indicator we are measuring and we are evaluating is called the quality of societal life, which is how I live, but also the way I live has an impact on the community, and that has an impact on the environment. The backbone of the methodology to develop this lies around those 6 essential functions, which you will all recognize that all of us today and yesterday and tomorrow, we have touched on all of that. We have been home, we left home to go to work. Some of us took children to school or had a class. Some others went by grocery shopping. Some others had a medical appointment. Hopefully, some of us had some relaxation time somewhere. Because that wasn't us. So some of you had some reflection time outside in the public space, and yeah. So every day we do activities that rotate around those 6 families. What we do, like some colleagues, Antoine and Michel, we map those activities using geospatial information, and we look at the potential of a territory to actually offer conditions to have close proximity to amenities. This model that is called 15-minute city, that we also call proximity, actually is now recognized scientifically from others, but not just us. What you have on the left-hand side is our first publication. That is basically the book of reference to you guys with your posters. Reference it, thank you so much, because this is what has started the work on that project. The middle, the picture is a white paper that connects quality of life to proximity, and now we see references from those 2 pieces of work into European research programs, into the research on climate change, and so on. So this is really important that it has left our little circle and it's now more public and challenged by others. This is a very technical slide, it's just for the students in the room who worked on the Hoffman Triangle, and we are so pleased and so impressed by the work you put together. This is what's ahead of you guys, it's the blue box, which is the qualitative analysis. You've done the green box, which is our way to do quantitative data analysis using GIS and clustering and categorizing those different resources that we talked about, to develop scorecards, and I'll share some example with you. But then you can not only look at what are the resources and the infrastructures from the database. You have to go and speak to the people to find out what it's like to be one day in the Hoffman Triangle, and to talk to a family, to talk to an elderly couple, to talk to a student, maybe to a child, to actually feel what it's like to be living those lives in that neighborhood. Those would be very common to the geographers in the room and the data scientists. So this is an example of how we track quality of life by looking at those isochrone calculations, what you have on the posters in the Hoffman Triangle, the distance to the gas station, the distance to the restaurant, where we calculate the distance to our 6 social functions, and we visualize how far are those resources, amenities that support people in the grocery shopping, in the medical appointment, in the workplaces, and so on. And we look at them from 2 angles. One is really the time spent walking, cycling, taking a bus, taking a car, which is one thing, which is on the left-hand side. And then we look at how the diversity of those resources affects the quality. Because if you only have one gas station, even if it's a close one, it's only one gas station. If you have 2 or 3, then your quality of life will increase because of the availability of that resource. So we developed those. I'm not going to take you through the detail of that, but this is an example of a project where you see the accessibility to a young person who could ride a bicycle, and this is the accessibility for a single-parent family with an electric car. And as you can see, the grid shape has changed because you access many more things when you drive a car than when you ride a bicycle. And so the radar, again, looks at the 6 social function and the gradients as to how many points, how many resources do I have according to the distance that I'm calculating. And then when you take all of that, and this is what you have in the hallway with your posters, you look at other type of data. You look at your social demographics, who's living in the neighborhood, how many families, what is the revenue average, do they have dogs, do they have children, do they, is the security, how is the security, what is the environmental risk in that neighborhood, all those things that make the neighborhood very special. And there are no two neighborhoods that have the same radars. And so this is a scorecard we developed last year for Buenos Aires, because one of the projects we were awarded was to evaluate the possibility for the city of Buenos Aires that has 48 districts, how to pick the best neighborhood and in each neighborhood the best street to create public spaces. Instead of spreading parks, gardens, benches, if you want to have an impact and you want to help people socialize or get support from climate change, where do you need to invest, for example, one type of project? Those were the maps we developed. But let me go to this one, which is really where I think we will continue working with you, and it's already started because Dr. Thompson took this material. So this little guy, he's been really like a buddy for us on this research, because he or she, because we're not too sure if it's a he or she, and that's okay. So Proxy has helped go into the community and say, we don't want to be intrusive, we don't want to, take away information you don't want to share, but what we do want to do is have you understand what is the impact of your life? How do you, what are the movements you do in the morning, what are the number of drives you take, the bus you take, and so on. And so we are calling this a proximity fresk, and I know fresk is not exactly a word that resonates well in outside of France, but fresk really just means it's a creative workshop that uses visual material. As you can see on the right hand side, you see the board. It's actually like a serious game. You play a persona, and so Michelle and some of you have been going around trying to interview people to find out what kind of persona we want to look at, because playing a radical user is very informative to understand the big differences and the contrast between living in a neighborhood from a family perspective, from a young worker perspective, from a visitor perspective, from a migrant perspective, and so on. So we do that. We do a lot of those workshops. This was in Africa last year. We were in Abidjan with Carlos, and you leave the workshops with a lot of ideas and also reflection about how people live. And by doing this in a neighborhood, you also get people self-realizing that they have a different life from someone else. They don't wake up at the same time, they don't have the same needs, they don't have the same habits, and this is okay, because that's the life we want to live. But at some point we have to rationalize, or at least integrate some of those differences. So here you see a different persona. We'll be working with Michelle to see how we can test this method again here. But this is really key, the qualitative parts of the project, how we get into the community, and by self-discovering how proximity can help families, then we can also start changing behaviors, because ultimately the name of the game is we have to adapt to what's happening. We have to adapt to the price of the resources, we have to adapt to the pollution, we have to adapt to the fact that there's injustice in access to services, access to opportunities, and so this workshop helps get at those points. This is my final slide, and I wanted to show you those two pictures. And I know you're going to say, wow, it's Paris, very different, nowhere near what our streets look like, the architecture. Some of you have been to Paris, right? I think you guys came to see us and say, I was there a few years ago, and so on. So Carlos will take you through the more detailed story, and it's a long process, and we are not here to tell you switch to this concept from today to tomorrow, because I can tell you it's not going to work. It's going to take a long time, including the time of city executive, citizen, association, the private sector. There needs to be a lot of alignment between the different stakeholders, but one thing is sure, when you manage to get some form of agreement, alignment, endorsement into creating more proximity, what you can do are small miracles like this one, which is agreement in Paris, and this is now expanding to other cities as a concept. It's now almost like an urban planning principle. Creating vegetalized and pedestrianized school streets that lead to school. In Paris, unlike here, you know that the streets are a bit smaller because the city was older. But for us, it was a little bit like you taking children to school, elementary school, sometimes junior high school. Families would get in the morning, and we don't have a yellow bus for all kinds of reasons. So you had to take your children to school, maybe some neighbors, and that meant that in the streets, you imagine cars would be parking with the lights and so on, and traffic jam. Kids would never be walking anywhere because they would be off the car into the school and so on. So, Carlos, being advisor to Mayor Hidalgo, we looked at this issue and thought that the children and this connection to the education committee is very important, and again, there are two reasons behind that. So, the picture on the right is a school street. It's and all of the school streets in Paris now are there are no cars anymore. You cannot drive your kid to school. You have to stop way before. It's blocked. It's vegetalized. It's walking. And so what you get with that is, number one, kids and children are now getting used again to be walking in the street and not being taken and in the car and so on. The other thing is that you get the community to enjoy that. To enjoy the fact that in the morning, over the lunch break, in the afternoon, and so on, there is movement. There are people in the street, there are children. They can play, they feel safe. Hopefully that can really radically change the way our kids learn to navigate in the city, because if the image we gave them is that we all need to be in cars or on motorbikes or in protected carbonated transportation, that's really not sustainable for the future. And then again, the elderly people, the people living in the neighborhood, they love to hear the noise of kids finishing school or entering school and so on. But the other benefit is that when we adults don't drive our kids to school like we did before, then the next segment which is going to work is not going to be by car. We have to find another way. So we use metro, bus, we walk, we cycle, which is really a virtuous co-benefit of that. We educate our generation to actually feel pedestrian have a place in the city. For the dense environment, it's going to be different in the villages and so on. And then we also pave the way for us to really get challenged, because we don't like to change, none of us, whether it's losing weight or stopping smoking or whatever. So let alone not driving your car anymore with your children in the morning. And the last picture here is also part of the same initiative around schools, because schools are an important vector of proximity. It's actually a central point in the neighborhood, right? The kids to school, it's like the main leverage mean. So there's investment going on also as part of this program to really embellish but also create different schoolyards. And the schoolyards are also a symbol, because that's how you socialize with others. And if you are in nature, if you can play, if you can plant vegetables and flowers, which is part of that program, then again, you change the nature of the connection between children and their environment, and the whole concrete and sort of hard environment can morph into nature. Nature has a place in the institute. So that was it. That was my introduction, and what with Michel we called, my city, my neighborhood. The work we do is theoretical, is conceptual. We publish our work, hopefully inspires other researchers, and there are lots of things going on around the world, and we are happy to see how this can be localized, challenged, and so on, discussed. But it has a very concrete objective as well, which is changing the places we live, and also changing for the future generation how we think and we represent cities. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. It is so very great pleasure for me to be here. Very good, very touched for this keynote on this university, sent to the president of the University of Provost, my dearest Michel Thompson. Really great moment for sharing our research work. Thank you to the students and to the audience. I will share in 20 minutes my vision on this topic. We have developed this research for proposing a new trajectory, a new path, essentially for improving our quality of life in our cities and in our territories. This is our essential target. How could we improve daily, radically, our quality of life? And I have developed for 14 years this research. I have started in 2010 for considering the power of services in cities, the power of proximity. Today, 14 years ago, I'm very proud of now that this concept, the 15 million city, has become very popular worldwide. In reality, I proposed at the same time two concepts, two twin concepts. The 15 million city for improving our quality of life in cities with a high density, and the 30 million territory for improving the quality of life in medium and low density territories. But I said different places around the world that the least important thing is the number of minutes. 15, 30, and 18, 32. This is not important. Some people have an obsession for the number of minutes and the average. In reality, we wanted to transform more radically our lifestyle, our work style, for living differently. I have a document because I am today in May in the USA, in New Orleans. My new book launched on Monday, 7th May, is dedicated to my source of all inspirations, Jane Jacobs. Jane Jacobs was a writer, journalist, activist, born in Canada, and she was born in May 4th. Jane Jacobs has coined the livable city, the living city concept. But Jane Jacobs was a strongly committed activist. In New York, Jane Jacobs has saved the Greenwich Village. Jane Jacobs was opposed to Robert Moses when Robert Moses in New York wished to cross the city with at least 5 new expressways for satisfying this male desire after the 60s to develop this modern centaur, half human, half cars. For that, we needed to build this expressway, build infrastructures to go faster issue. And I proposed to the international human cities community to dedicate the 4th May to Jane Jacobs with the Jane Jacobs Day. I'm not sure I will reach this target, but I continue to insist in pay a worldwide tribute to Jane Jacobs on 4th May. Jane Jacobs in the different commitments, activities, said our conscience is the ultimate weapon. And this is one of the main points of her legacy. And today, this is absolutely mandatory to reflect if really we have activated our conscience. If we have decided to use this ultimate weapon for living differently in pace with the tremendous challenges in face with us, not only for this year, next year, next year, no, for our humanity in the perspective of the next decades. I want to pay tribute to Jane Jacobs because we needed to transform our cities for having really livable cities, living cities. And the only essential question for each one of us is in what kind of city do we want to live? We need to use our conscience for discussing that, but not only for discussing, for acting. We have a lot of different cities around the world. The 5 continents. Cities are places with human beings live in majority. But we could shape different our cities. This is our question. Cities, in fact, is the most significant artificial system complex created by the humans. And today, Carlos Moreno is not a genius. I'm not alone. My inspiration is not as Archimedes, the Greek mathematician, in his bad Rome, when he said, Eureka. This is a legacy for more than almost 100 years, 1 century of thinkers and lovers, for imagining differently our cities after the emergence of the modern urbanism based on the automotive cities. The turning point for cities was the emergence, no more the city for human, but the city for car. This automotive city is one of the many points for transforming our lives, for wasting our time with the long commute, and for taking part actively for generating a massive pollution. This was the emergence of the Anthropocene period, when our human activity as at the same time the destruction of our environment totally necessary for living. We have a lot of people. The German sociologist Sinet has proposed in 1903. He said in his book Metropolis and Mental Life, Mental Health, Sinet said to be resident in a place is not equal as to live in a city. And after that, we have in the USA the beginning of the 20th century, 1923, Clarence Perry with the neighborhood units, the new pedestrianism, the new urbanism. My friends, I will deliver the closing keynote on May 18 in Cincinnati for their 32nd Congress. And a lot of different thinkers and those. But at the center, James Acosta thinker that she's unforgettable. With the 15-minute city concept, with the 30 minutes territory model, the nickname, the real name of my research is the happy proximity, because we could find a lot of different nicknames, the 10-minute city, vital neighborhood, 20 minutes territory, even in Copenhagen, 5-minute city, X-minute city, etc. The relevant point is to start with this concept. After the COP21 in Paris, when for the first time I have proposed this concept in October 2016, a new trajectory, a new path for living differently, regardless of the size of density of our cities and territories. My friend Richard Florida said that one of the most significant contributions of Professor Moreno was to propose a modeling, ontologic model for addressing the same issues in the different geographical, cultural, economic, and social political configurations for cities, high density or territories, medium and low density. And in reality, I think that this is one of the important points. We have often worldwide a really extensive dialogue on urban models and practices for defining not only what kind of city we want to live in, but how do we act today for transforming ourselves. The first time when I proposed this concept in 2016, a lot of people said, Professor Moreno, very dynamic guy, very creative, okay, but this idea to develop a polycentric proximity is not a real good idea. This is an utopia. Given that, it will be impossible to transform our life and work style. To imagine to work differently, it is a bad idea. People should thank to have a job, to have a salary wage, even if they should spend 2 hours or more for commuting. And my job is to be a scientist, to explore the ideas, to propose a new hypothesis, and at the same time to explore these ideas in the concrete reality. 14 years after starting this research, 8 years after the first proposal in October 2016, we have today this great pleasure to observe around the world, in the 5 continents, a lot of different implementation of this concept. We have today in cities and in territories around the world, with our strategic allies, the United Nations Habitat in charge of cities, UN Habitat, C40 cities, the global network for fighting against climate change, which New Orleans is one of members. UCG, United Cities and Local Governments, the most important Association of Mayors, Regions, Cities, and Territories, and my team. We have created a strategic alliance, and we have today this trajectory when we are very happy, very proud of the rise of this concept. But I want to underline, I want to highlight that the most important is to contribute in this new awareness path to live different, to wake up our conscience in the way proposed by James Jacobs. In reality, today, the 50-minute city is no more a concept. The 50-minute city is organic, present in the different places. And if we wanted to put it in a nutshell, we offer today this new path for reconciling our common global mandatory to fight against climate change and its tremendous impacts and consequences. But unfortunately, for our humanity in this decade and for the next decade, we are in face with other complicated challenges, the urban health. The urban health with the COVID-19 was a planetary pandemic with the dramatic impacts we could observe still now, the terrible consequences, social, economical, mental. In Europe, for 2 years, we have this disastrous war in Ukraine. And recently, 6 months ago, the Middle East with this terrific crisis, the war. The 15-minute city, the 30-minute territory is today an important, significant contribution because we need to evoke these current difficulties for transforming this global economy based in the offshore. This economy that have humanized our cities to create the strong dependencies. China becomes the global factory of the world, South Korea and Taiwan, the semiconductors electronic factory of the world, India, Bangalore, the software factory of the world, the North Africa, the fabric factory of the world, and the call center after. We need to develop another economic model in a sustainable way. Our world, and in particular our cities, are unsustainable in the current way. The happy proximity with the different nicknames, of course, with the 50-minute city, 30-minute the original concept, is today a powerful way for reconciling these three targets. The ecology for preserving our natural resources, for switching from the century of energy fossil, or the fossil energies toward renewable energies, to preserve our biodiversity, to develop a more local vibrant economy, local jobs, job to circuits, to use the raw materials, to put with this dependency of importations, and to have a social impact focused on inclusivity, for more equality in cities, for fighting against the populism, racism, for fighting against segregation. The three keywords are relocating jobs, regenerate neighborhoods, rebuilding leagues in a way for considering that our global threat, climate emergency, is today an extremely important reason for developing this new lifestyle. Climate change is today a reality worldwide. This is not only the temperature of the air, this is as well the temperature of the sea surface. This is today, 3 weeks ago, we have lived in the abnormal temperature conditions worldwide. But we need to be aware as well, in particular for the business, for the entrepreneurship, the current economic impact of climate change. This is not only a question of young people excited for attack painting in the museum. This is not a question of the young people as Greta Thunberg for developing demonstrations around the world. No, I wanted to insist for the white collars, for the CEO of the different companies, and our colleagues in Germany, in Potsdam, of the Institute for Climate Impact Research have published recently, April 17, in the scientific review Nature, an impressive piece, and just two elements, $38 trillion, the economic cost of damages of climate change each year. Second point, a reduction of 19% of the yearly turnover of the concrete business. Even if we wanted to continue with the same economic model, this economic model is unsustainable just in the economic way. $38 trillion, the economic cost of damages each year of climate change. And I said to different businessmen, businesswomen around the world, this is the trend. We have been continuing to observe the records of temperature. This quarter, the first quarter of 2024, was the hottest quarter of the history modern after measuring temperature. And each quarter, each month is reaching the same. We don't have another choice but to define our trajectory. We want to go to the old house, we want to stabilize. The key for this question is in cities. With climate change, the loss of biodiversity and the systemic impacts are totally related with our lifestyle, and in particular, the massive urbanization around the world. This is true in Louisiana, this is true in New Orleans, this is true in the very, very rich countries, the Emirates, for example. This is true in my country, in France, in my continent, in Europe. This is true in South America. This is true worldwide. This is the picture in April 16 in Dubai. Dubai was totally flooded, and this is the case still now. by the absence of the infrastructure for managing the rain. In 24 hours, they had almost 2 years of rain. In New Orleans, sorry, this is 2005. In 2005, your unfortunately hurricane category 5, almost 2,000 fatalities, and the damages estimated between 97 to $150 billion, with the consequences still now visible. Thank you for this morning the impressive visit to this sector. But this was in 2005. But this hurricane, category 5, was closed here 4 months ago in Acapulco. For the first time, they have suffered a hurricane category 5. For rebuilding Acapulco, the evaluation is more than $3.4 million. I want to evoke the economic cost for being convinced that change our lifestyle or work style, this is not only an ecological point of view for preserving trees, for preserving digitalization, no. This is for preserving the economy in the different aspects. We have accepted to live and we want to promote in the 21st century, in the second decade, the same lifestyle of the past century. In reality, our lifestyle, our massive pollution of our cities, the infrastructures for the automotive cities, the modern centers, half human, half car, is the legacy at the beginning of the last century when Mr. Henry Ford has launched this massification of individual cars. Since this period, we have accepted to shape our cities under the control of 3 particular materials, no more the quality of life. This expression will disappear. And we have focused our cities for cars, concrete, air, oil, fossil energy. We have shaped for almost 1 century our cities only for developing these 3 materials. This was the consequence of this urbanistic model. This is not an urbanistic model focused on the essential needs for human beings. This is the urbanistic model for developing more and more infrastructures, for living in a hectic life, for living in the extreme desertification, for wasting our time in long commutes, based on the founder, the father of the modern urbanism architecture, the Swiss Lander Le Corbusier, when the Ashen Chart was adopted in 1933, and this lifestyle style was spread around the world. The city that succeeds is the one that moves fast and furious. This was the motto until now. This is one of the classical digital maps of a modern city. In this case, is Vancouver. One color for each one of our essential daily needs for satisfying. We have accepted to live in cities with a separated colors. To work, my house, cultural activities, administrative center, and of course, we have developed this double injustice, the spatial injustice, because we have developed in the outskirts the social housing overcrowded with the social segregation, racial segregation, particularly in the USA. And at the same time, we have developed this temporal injustice. 2, 3, 4 hours for just to surviving, for having a few dollars. A lot of people are obliged to have even 2, 3 jobs in the same day, just for surviving. And in Paris, with the incredible, amazing, outstanding economic inequalities. After the COVID-19, we have observed the new radical transformations, in particular as far as the job, the work style is concerned. This is a new opportunity for reflecting how could we work differently, how could we live differently, because with the COVID-19 we have discovered a lot of proximities, our neighbors, our green areas close to our residents. A lot of people have discovered the possibility for using digital technologies for working, etc. With the 15-minute city, the 30-minute territory, we want to address these challenges: ecological, economical, and social. For having a more ecological city livable, economic developed city viable, for developing added value, for sharing this added value, and with a social impact for an inclusive, equitable city. In reality, the impact of the 15-minute city, of the 30-minute territory, is to develop this term, habitability, the urban and territorial habitability, to live with a more reduced carbon footprint, okay? But not only. To develop a new urban economic model for fighting against poverty and inequities. And third, to create a more local social interactions. Our motto today is in fact to transform the economic model in the neighborhood. They want to insist in the USA because this is a frequently question. What is your point of view as economy? Okay, ecological, okay, social interaction, okay. But what the use of economy? You had a Nobel Prize, Paul Krugman. He was awarded in 1992 for the concept of nearshoring. Paul Krugman is a visionary scientist. When in 1992 he said, we need to stop with the global offshoring for relocalizing not only our production, but relocalizing our skills, relocalizing our short circuits, relocalizing our materials to develop more materials. Paul Krugman proposed that with the regions, the region of the nearshoring. Today, we have the honor to work in a regional North America network of scientists with Paul Krugman. We publish in the next 2 weeks a common scientific article for evoking that in these modern times, 50 years after proposed by Paul, the nearshoring is a new time for reinventing. His concept was the new economical geography. My concept is the happy proximity, for joining our best before, for crossing with my inspirator for a long time after his book in 2010, the Nobel Prize Mohammed Yunus, my friend, when he proposed the word of triple zero, zero carbon, zero poverty, and zero exclusion. The happy proximity, the 50-minute cheating, the 30-minute territory model, the different nicknames, is a reality and opportunity for examining for this decade, for the next decade, this new economical geography based on a sustainable proximity for transforming radically our lifestyle, our work style, our communities, our business model, for developing a more community buildings, but not for living disconnected of the other community, but to develop an interconnected city, the interconnected communities for fighting against the different segregation that existed in our cities. We have to propose a new urban and territorial narrative with a new city business model for federating the local governors, mayors, president of metropolis, president of regions, etc., for federating as well researchers, students, academics, citizen dwellers, and businessmen, businesswomen, for transforming a business model based on three materials: oil, cement, and gas. For regenerating this business model, to propose a business model no more based on certification, segregation, identification, but to develop, instead of the infrastructure for a single use, to develop infrastructure for a multi-purpose function, to host in the same places different kind of activities. Our motto is to develop this massive mixity that uses the local functions. We have redefined the quality of life based on the massive presence of local services. And we have found that a lot of inequities in cities and territories are totally related by the absence of the local services in proximity, but this absence is the source of the generation and the deepening this double injustice, spatial and temporal injustice. The temporal injustice is today absolutely compulsory to be aware. It is not possible to accept it, to lose our useful time. Lots of people has a clock, but nobody has a useful time just for living. Jean Jacobs said the point of cities is a multiplicity of choice. A city is alive, said Jean Jacobs, when you can choose what you want to do anytime, anywhere, without having to depend on a car. And this is today the core of a lot of our difficulties. We have accepted to live in a massive and permanent car dependence. If we wanted to transform our urban life, our territorial life, we need to change radically our relationship between an urban space and our useful life. This is the core of our proposal, to redefine the quality of life in a new matrix, the high-quality societal living matrix based on 6 essential functions: to live in the good condition, with dignity, to work without a long commute, to reduce the long commute, to supply, to access to local jobs, to local raw materials, short facilities, to care, the well-being, mental and physical, the education and the culture, to access to education, a lot of different sources of culture, and to enjoy the public spaces for people, for women, for children, and no more for a predominance of cars. We have redefined 3 new indicators of the quality of life: my well-being, individual and familial, my sociability with my neighbor and my work colleagues, and my sustainability, my CO2 footprint, and the otherness with the other people. We have proposed this social circularity based on this habitability in a horizontal city. The idea is not to develop just to people that live inside or a few minutes within a short perimeter. No, the idea is to develop a more vibrant horizontal city for satisfying the different color in a massive complexity. Our roadmap, because the 15-minute TV is not a magic wand, it's not a magic dust for transforming in a few months 7, 8 decades of the massive zonification and gentrification. We wanted to mix 1 color, 2 colors, 3 colors, 4 colors, 5 colors, 6 colors. We need to figure out a new roadmap for transforming our cities as a new urban and territorial public policy. This message, this idea is an idea for mayors, president of metropolises, local governors, for proposing a new local urban plan, a new territorial plan, for mixing with 1 year, 2 years, 3 years and more, the different colors in order to develop this new horizon. Our colleagues of the Technological University of Munich have summarized 8 key elements of our proposal. Proximity to essential services, organic density for using the new organic materials instead of the cement concrete, the massive mixed uses, more quality public spaces, a more efficient public transportation, more active low carbon mobility on foot or by bike, inclusivity for managing this diversity, and ubiquity for using the new technologies, digital technologies, for developing more proximity, because in proximity, Catherine said, explained that this is not a metric distance, this is a lot of different proximities, including vehicles. We have proposed not only a concept theoretical, but a methodology. Catherine Gall explained just before me this methodology using geospatial data analysis, GI system, multi-scalar indicators, the adaptive isochrone, because the proximity is not the same for the teenager, for elderly people, for the pregnant woman, for a couple with or without children. We have developed declarative workshop, Catherine explained that. We have today a very large community around the world for implementing this concept, this methodology, and these practices in the local context. This is not a doxa. This is not an idea for having a Moreno copyright or a patent. This is an idea for the common good, for the public common good, in order to adapt in the particular context, for having no more a smart city, but to have simply happy citizens with happy lives in a happy city. This was one of the common points with my friend Charles Montgomery, a researcher of Canada. He wrote a very, very great book, A Happy City, and we are totally aligned with this idea. We have today a lot of programs around the world in the continent, in Europe. The European Union has launched global projects driving urban transitions with 3 items. One of items is the 15-minute. My very favorite in Paris is when the mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, I want to pay tribute in permanence to Anne Hidalgo because she is not only a visionary pioneer mayor, but at the same time determined, very courageous. For taking a lot of unpopular measures and to show that this is indeed the good trajectory. In May 2023, exactly 1 year ago, the city of Paris has voted his new local urban plan, the Bio-Climate Parisian Urban Plan, based on this idea. This is so important because this is the radical transformation of the city for the next decade. The last time when the city of Paris has voted the local urban plan was in 2000. 23 years ago, we have voted the new local plan, and in this way, the different measures for regenerating our city, for developing local employment, local jobs, digitalization, for being resilient in face with climate change, for reducing the role of individual cars, for banning cars of the expressway, to transform the expressway in the new urban parks, etc., etc. This is for schools, Katrina have presented, the local commerce in all city, all our political actions with the commercial property subsidiary of the city of Paris for considering the local shops as the common good. This idea for rebalancing our city. Some people said Moreno want to generate a new segregation in cities. And I said, this is the photo of the segregation in Paris in 2020. In the northeast of Paris, Michel knows very well, we have more than 42.5% of social housing. In the West District, in the 7th District, 2.2% social housing. This is totally correct, it's totally insane. This is a real segregation. The segregation for wealthy people, the segregation for poor people. We have decided to transform radically this situation for rebalancing our city in a more natural, balanced city. For that, we have decided to transform for the single use of the corporated business district in the west of Paris, for regenerating social housing, and in the east of Paris, when we have the overcrowded social housing, to reduce this overcrowded social housing and to mix with the new places for working, new medical services, new green areas. And this refurbishing of building with the new organic materials. This is an example. This was a former headquarters of the corporate company transformed today in a mix with the social housing, with organic materials, wood in this case. We have created in Paris different new centralities for showing that it is totally possible to change of this paradigm. This is, for example, the Tichy-Batignolles and former Western Dam. And today, instead of to have a Western Dam, we have regenerated the quality of life with a new district built with, at the core, a new green area, the Martin Luther King Park, 14 hectares. And today, we have hosted 15,000 of inhabitants. This was a very proud of that because it's in the Rue Saint-Dominique Street. This is the core of the 7th district, 2.2 social housing. The city of Paris has bought 2 blocks of the former headquarters of the Ministry of Defense. And we have transformed a new eco-district with a happy proximity. We have installed 250 families, 50% of the social housing. This is the same rate for the eco-district that you should have 50% of social housing, 25% for middle class, 20% for owners. And this new eco-district at the core of the West District is not only in a massive social initiative, but it is so beautiful at the architectural design. The city of Paris was awarded with the best architectural designer in 2023. Just before finishing This is a picture of the, in other scale, the scale of a nation. This is the Scotland, UK. The Scottish Parliament has voted in February 2023 the new roadmap for the whole territory to be transformed in 20-minute neighborhoods. And 2 weeks ago, the Scottish, the Ministry of Urban Planning has published the new urban planning guidance for developing that. In my city is Paris, and you have the Ile-de-France region, 10 million of inhabitants. The mayor of Paris is the Socialist Party. Those people is Moreno is a communist, because the socialists are communists. The president of the Ile-de-France region is the right, conservative. And the president of the Ile-de-France region, the conservative Valérie has voted in 2023 the new master plan, the strategic program, the 20-minute Ile-de-France region. This is so important for considering that this is not a question of the political color. This is a question of the compulsory actions for changing radically our lifestyle, our work style in face with our challenges. We have created the Global Observatory of Sustainable Proximities with UN Habitat, with 340 cities, with UCNG, United Cities and Local Governments, and our team at Sorbonne University, our lab. Carlos is one of the pillars of this global organization. And I want to take a benefit for finishing with this call for joining this global observatory of sustainable proximity. This is a global network of academics, cities for acting, for federating our best efforts, for developing the new indicators, for proposing initiatives, for developing the new projects, for exchanging on our best practices and even our bad practices, for having this collective, a common trajectory for acting and for paying tribute always to Jean Jacob for saying our conscience is our ultimate weapon. Thank you.